Live in our hearts, fill this body, stir our spirits, help us serve. Walk with our feet to the hurting. Let us be you, revive your church.
Welcome to Fantastic Families, Week 7. I hope that you're continuing on with your family and doing these family devotionals each week, and you're thinking about them throughout the week. This week I'm at the hospital because we're talking about strong families dealing with crisis positively. It seems that all families most certainly are going to have crisis. Whether it's the tragic car accident, whether it is the doctor telling someone they've got cancer, whether it is some other type of illness that someone faces, whether it's the death of a loved one, we all have to face crisis. So the question then is not when, but how will we handle it when it does come? You see, strong families have ways of handling it. In the lesson, you're going to notice that there are 6 tactics for handling stress and crisis, and also 6 strategies that strong families have employed to be able to overcome crisis. You see, crisis often is that fork in the road, and strong families choose to allow it to draw them closer to God, to allow it to cause them to come together, while other families often allow crisis to pull them apart. They allow it to cause dissension and arguing within the ranks, blaming and hatred to rear their ugly heads, and it draws them away from God as they blame God for their problems. And so how are we going to handle crisis? Strong families learn to deal with it so that they come out of it stronger and closer to God and closer to one another. I'm reminded of James chapter 1, when James instructs us to count it all joy when we fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith will produce patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be complete, lacking nothing. And so we need to persevere, knowing that we should even be able to have a perspective of joy, because through this, God will work in us if we allow Him to through these trials. Seeking God's wisdom, knowing that it will help complete us, persevering in faith. How is your family going to handle crisis? Listen to some of our men talk about how their family has handled it and the effects it has had upon their family in making them stronger. Read the scriptures, talk about the lesson, talk about those questions openly and honestly, give yourself plenty of time, and then pray together. We're almost finished. Week 7. Strong families deal with crisis positively. May God bless you in this week so that you can become a fantastic family.
I think when we're going through a crisis, we have a tendency to focus on ourselves, whether it's a loss of a family member or something equally as bad. We think of how it affects us, and I believe that one of the attitudes that we should develop is thinking that we're not the only one going through this, that there are others that are dealing with it in their own way, and we need to be sensitive to that, and we need to realize that if it's in the loss of someone, that everyone is grieving in their own way.
You've got to be willing to listen as well as talk, and you've got to be willing to share things, to break yourself down, to show your fear, to show maybe your disappointments. A lot of times we try to hide these things, and really, your family members know that you're holding back. But you have to be willing to do these things, and you just break yourself down, and then you can build yourself up, or they can as well. The last few years, we've been through divorce in our family. We've lost the life of both of Brenda's parents, and one of them was unexpected, and we went through a terrible accident. And you learn to increase your faith. I mean, I'm kind of like Ronnie said a while ago, a lot of times I don't think my faith's like it should be. But when you have nothing else, when that's all you've got to depend on, it increases. And you do depend on God, and you depend on each other. life can get pretty low sometimes, but with the church and with each other, you can build yourself up.
Sometimes crisis needs to be shared with your church family in a way where you have the power of their prayer also to get through it.
A little tip about dealing with crisis, and sometimes I don't think I've handled crisis sometimes as good as I should have, but I think you have to be patient. Sometimes we look at a crisis and then in the end it really doesn't turn out to be a crisis. If you're patient and you put everything in God's hands, with the situation with me, I'm a cancer survivor for now close to 20 years, I guess. And when I first came in contact with cancer, I had to have a career change. And of course, now I guess I'm blessed that all that happened, because it really has worked out good for me. But back when it happened, I didn't think I was blessed, because I was really dealing with a crisis at that time, and God evidently had a plan, and it worked out the way, that was supposed to work out. And you have to try to be patient and calm, as calm as you possibly can be in what you consider to be a crisis, because in the end, it really might be a crisis.
I think the fact that we are Christians gives us a strength that you don't have if you're not a Christian. I hope I have enough to go through a crisis like that. I think we all have to realize that anytime we're in a crisis situation, we're not able to handle it by ourselves. And one of the great blessings of being a Christian is we can turn it over to God, even though we realize we worry about it, and we have anxiety about it, lose sleep over it, but still we've got God to turn to. And in the long run, as we've all said, things turn out in a way many times that we didn't see them turning out that way to start with.
But I believe one way that God is there is through other Christians. And I think that we've all been through times in our lives that was a crisis. And when we look up and see that other person there, I think it makes a difference. I was speaking with a neighbor the other day about a benefit dinner, and he had a similar situation in his family. And we agreed that many times it's not the amount of money that's collected in those things, but it's the looking out over the crowd and seeing that there are other people that care.
Live in our hearts, fill this body, stir our spirits,